Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, we're going to look at the All Stakes Pick 4, culminating with the Stephen Foster as the featured event to be run at Ellis Park. I know that they moved everything from Churchill. So there's some good fields, so let's take a look at it. The first leg of the All Stakes Pick 4 at Ellis is the Grade 2 Fleur de Lis Stakes, and it's the 8th race. It's a mile and an eighth on the dirt for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And because this has been moved from Churchill, but obviously the configuration is a little different because we have a smaller track. So it's important to note that this race pretty much starts on a turn. So horses to the inside are going to have a pretty good advantage. And Ellis has been playing speed favoring virtually to all races on the dirt. So that's something we want to keep in mind, particularly in this race. There's a lot of late speed. So anybody who can get up on the engine or get near it is going to have, I think, tactically a pretty good advantage. Number 1 is Bellamore, and this one is a model of consistency. You just see 88, 89, 90. She basically runs the same race virtually every time. The last one in the game league was on turf and was in a pretty good field. You had Macadamia and the Queen Goddess, to name a couple. Stayed up on the engine for the majority of it, and then just weakened late. I didn't think it was a bad performance, and moving back to dirt, I think, is probably a better move for this one. And I think should factor in this. It being on the rail, should be able to get up and get on the lead, and I think that's going to be a pretty good place to be, particularly with the configuration. So then the question really is going to be whether or not she's good enough, and that is a subject to debate, but she will tactically have a pretty big advantage being on the lead. So I think this is one you certainly want to think about using. Simon Callahan is 15%, 45% of the money with shippers in this spot. So it's not a bad venue, and again, I think this is tactically a pretty good place. So I think this is one you want to consider. Moonswag is coming from Churchill last time, ran in the Shawnee and didn't have a bad effort. Kind of flattened out for fourth. It is second off the layup, and Brendan Walsh is is a hot barn right now. And once he gets hot, he stays hot for a while. We saw that at Keeneland as well. You get Luis Saez aboard, so I think there'll be, particularly with the 2-hole. This one will probably be geared to get up on the lead as well, so should be riding closer than last time. It is encouraging that coming off the bench, this one did get the career high buyer, so I think that's a positive, and second off the layoff isn't a bad angle for Brendan Walsh. So there are some positives, there are some things to like. You might want to consider this one at a price, considering how hot the barn is. I think this one being right off the leaders, and if it can move forward off the Shawnee Stakes, then I think this one has a decent chance. Royal Take Charge is making a pretty big class jump to a Grade 2, first graded stakes effort, but this horse hasn't done anything wrong, and you can see has won 3 out of the last 4, and in the last race ran a nice stalking trip off the pace and then drew off in the stretch at the current distance for this race, so that's not a problem. Christian Torres isn't doing so great as a jockey right now. I know you see some pretty good stats there, but he's in a bit of a slump, so that's a red flag. Al Stahl is one of those great under the radar trainers. He's been around a long time, and he's 2 for 5 at 80% in the money with a $2.52 ROI in this spot, third off the layoff. So I think this one will run a peak effort. Now, I'm not sure if this one's quite good enough to win this race. That's really the big question, because it is a fairly good class jump, but the form is good. I think under's probably more likely, but I think this is one you certainly can consider. Soul of an Angel is really, more than anything else, it appears to me that this one just has too much to do late. It seems to come from the back. Has a lot of has some braking issues coming poorly out of the gate, and consequently, that's going to leave a lot to do. And on a track like this, I don't think that's really the best of scenarios. So I'm going to pass. Pauline's Pearl, is certainly a class fit based on prior efforts, but the last two races in particular haven't really been very good, and I think that's a bit of a concern. I mean, we can, we can draw a line through maybe one of them, but two in a row, then that tends to be a bit of a question mark. Steve Asmussen's really good at getting horses into good form and keeping them there. And Pauline's Pearl has been no exception. For the most part of her career, she's been a model of consistency. So that's why for the last two, it's a bit of a red flag. Can this one rebound? Sure. But will be coming from off the pace, as she's done in the last couple, and I don't think that's going to spell for a very good chance to win this race. I think the class is there, but underneath is probably more likely given the current form. I find it really hard to think about this one as a win candidate. Amo Ray last time was way at the back, and that was a little unusual, as this one likes to run a little closer to the pace, and I think we'll probably get back to that with this current race. She still closed very nicely on the La Troyenne, but she just had a little too much to do. I think that she'll be able to draw off the leaders. And, from the 6 holes, she should be able to get, if she breaks a little better, should be able to get into a good position. But mid-pack will still be okay, I think, for this one. Definitely is a contender here without question. And, you get Brad Cox and you get Flavian Pratt, so there's not a whole lot not to like here. I think this is an obvious win candidate, and you certainly have to use. Hardy Constitution, and Joe Sharp is red hot right now. You can see he's got 5 out of 15 wins, and Tyler Gaffalione, the two of them, are clicking at a really solid rate. So I think this is that immediately has to put this one into consideration. We look at the last race. It was on turf. It was in an ungraded state bred. For Pennsylvania bred, so I don't know how much of a help that is class-wise. This is certainly a bump up. If you go back to the 3-year-old form, you see the last elevation to graded stakes wasn't terribly good in the fantasy, but this horse is certainly has shown that some sparks of some talent, and the connections, like I said, they're so hot right now, it's kind of hard not to think about this one, but I think underneath is probably more likely because I don't see the top end. So if I don't really like 5-1 with this horse. So I mean, I would want a little bit better price to use, and if I did, it would more likely be under. Music Street, I just don't think is good enough. That's the bottom line. She's really not too far behind Hardy Constitution, and I think these are pretty deep waters, and particularly the last couple to start the 4-year-old campaign weren't encouraging because she didn't even come close to her career high buyer in the debut at the option 80, and improved on that slightly in the next race. So you are getting third off the layoff, but I don't see the class there, and I don't see the speed more than anything else to be a really solid contender in this race. So I would toss. Second leg of the All-Stakes Big Four is the 9th race at Ellis, and it's the Grade 2 Wise Dan Stakes. It's run on the turf at 1 1/16 for 4-year-olds and up. And number 1 is Harlan Estate, and he looks like kind of a middling type of player here. He's coming in decent form. He's had 2 straight pretty good races, including a pretty good third in the Arlington last time at Churchill. He's got a good turf rider on him in Declan Cannon, and that's definitely going to help, I think. It just looks to me like there's others that are a little better. At 5 years old, he's, to ask him to build on that for a winning effort, I'm not sure is in the cards necessarily. But you are getting 10-1, so perhaps under if you're thinking about using them. The other thing I would mention is I don't really like Cantharos as a as a sire for 2-turn races, but he does have a record of running at them, so I'm not going to worry about that too terribly much. Number 2 is Tut's Revenge, and this one is very interesting to me, mainly because you're getting him at 20-1. Now, if you look at the last 2 efforts, they were on sprints at Oaklawn on the dirt, and they were okay. They were, nothing to write home about. So you might wonder about the move to turf, but go back on this one's form to August 7th of last year at Ellis Park in the Evan Williams at a mile, and you see an effort that's pretty competitive here. Ran a really big race for a 96 buyer, and you note that the race prior to that was also a sprint on the dirt in a stakes. Now, he was obviously in good form at that time, and I don't think his form is that bad here either. It looks like he can stay up near the pace, or he can take back if necessary. Francisco Arietta is not the greatest of turf riders. That's the only thing that's kind of a liability here. But at 20-1, this one's kind of interesting. I don't know that I could necessarily call him a win candidate, but I think underneath it, at odds, maybe you want to think about. Number 3 is Camp Hope, and he's coming off a win in an optional claimer at Churchill, and it was a decent class test for him. So that would all be positives coming into this, except one thing. He's coming off Lasix, and Kenny McPeak is notoriously terrible with horses who are coming off Lasix. And in particular in this spot, he's 0 for 9. And if you do note, the last race he was on Lasix, and the one prior, he had come off Lasix, and he did not do very well in the opening verse. So there is a history here of better efforts with Lasix and mediocre ones without, particularly when stepping up in class. So while the last race was certainly encouraging, I'm going to pass on him because I think without Lasix he won't run as well. Number 4 is Get Smokin', and he will likely be the speed, I would suppose. You got Ricardo Santana aboard, who's a really hot jockey right now. And Marcassi's a little lukewarm, but he can heat up at any time, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. Had a nice effort in the Arlington, the same race as Set Piece and Harlan Estate, a couple others in here. And I think that he could very well get on the engines. Early speed's been playing well on turf as well at Ellis. So I think that he would be a legitimate use in this case if Set Piece doesn't run back to form. You see this one has been getting a little bit better every race, so I think he's a logical use and a candidate to steal it. Play Action Pass, I think, is really intriguing at 12-1. You got a hot barn in Robert Medina. He's 2 for 4 right now. And you got Tyler Gaffalione aboard, who's a nice turf rider and is just red hot right now. The two of them have been connecting well this year at 28%, so that's a positive. They're also coming second off the layoff, and he ran in that race with Camp Hope last time, and I thought he ran a pretty good race. He kept on well. He rated behind what I would consider to be a fairly decent pace, particularly considering how they run turf races these days. So it's logical that he might not have a whole lot in this stretch, but in this case, I mean, I think Set Piece will probably try to slow it down. There's not a lot of front runners. I think there's only one other in here. So this one is debut with a nice race, close to the career high buyer at 4 years old, and you're getting second off the layoff. I like Play Action Pass especially at 12-1. I think this one's a logical use, and hopefully we'll get that home with a really nice price. Catansit is number 6, and Paulo Lobo, he's let me down every race time I've thought about using him this year. And I don't know that I want to blame Paulo for that, but it just seems like whenever he's had a horse that looks poised to have a good race, they don't fire. In this case, he's got Christian Torres on him, who's not the greatest of turf riders and is a little bit of a slump right now. It is third off the layoff, but Paulo Lobo is 0 for 8 in this spot. Third off the layoff in a stakes race. Now you can look and see that the first effort off the bench wasn't very good. And the second effort was certainly an improvement because he won. But note that it was only a 4-horse field, and so he didn't have a whole lot to overcome, and he pretty much got to his spot where he wanted. More than anything else, he had a very grinding style. Not that big acceleration kick. He was just sort of outlasted the other ones with a grinding effort. And if you like him, I suppose you could use him at 12-1. That's a pretty good price, but I just am a little skittish about using him. I just don't know that last race he got enough out of to factor here. But again, if you want to give him a shot, go ahead. Number 7 is Cowboy Justice, and he is a shipper, and he's been in the States now for a couple of starts. That first race in the N2X allowance was a pretty good third. He was a little rank on the backstretch, and I suppose we can excuse that, being the first race since October and in a new country and whatnot. The second race was very disappointing. The optional claimer, he didn't run at all against Smokey T in that race, and was no factor whatsoever. So it would be hard to get interested in this horse for the third time, except if you look at his tab. Since that last race, he's been just throwing bullet after bullet up. So obviously he's feeling pretty good. And at 20-1, I think he might be a pretty good candidate here. I would think likely under is probably more likely. But nonetheless, he's in good form, and he is 4 years old, so there's still some improvement possible. I think this is one maybe you want to think about. Set Piece is the 4-5 favorite, and I have to say that while he's certainly a deserving favorite, he's 7 years old. This is a distance that he's fine at. But the only thing I want to note is that if you look at his better efforts, his wins, they've all been against smaller fields. In the last one, he only beat 6. He beat 6 in the Baltimore-Washington, and you go back, and then the dinner party, he only beat 7. I don't know if there's anything to that, but I think it's an interesting observation about this horse. I think he's certainly a class fit here, and he's coming third off the layoff. Brad Cox, Florent Giroux. No reason to bet against him, and we're certainly going to use him on our tickets. But I just kind of wonder if maybe this isn't necessarily the ideal situation. Just call it a hunch. Stitched didn't really, he wilted in the when the running got serious in the last race, and I think if you look that this is probably a little over this one's head. I think will be a pace factor to a degree with Get Smokin', but I don't see enough here to get me excited about this one competing in this race, so I would pass. Number 10, Hosier, is kind of intriguing as well. If you consider he's coming into this race third off the layoff and closed very well. Had to swing out 7 wide in the last one, and was finished pretty strongly, I thought, in the stretch. And so that would tell me that he's in pretty good form. He's a late runner, and so with a little help, he could get there. I mean, he's at 15-1. I think that's pretty good value. And I think under is probably more likely. I don't know that he necessarily has the top end to win this race, but I think this is one you certainly might consider using. Third leg of the All-Stakes Pick 4 is the 10th race at Ellis Park, and it's the Grade 1 Stephen Foster, the featured event. It's run on the dirt at 1 1/8 for 4-year-olds and up. And if you note, it is run close to, it starts close to a turn. So again, horses on the inside with early speed tactically have a bit of an advantage. Not going to be a problem for Proxy, I don't think. We know he's going to be coming from off the pace, so he'll be able to just lay back and get on the rail and then save some ground. This horse is really, he's been running a lot better at 5, but he's so hard to trust still. In the last race, the Oakland Handicap, he got to the top of the stretch, looked poised and ready to make a run, and then he just stopped running, albeit so briefly. And that's just he has a habit of doing that. He's been doing that a long time, and it's cost him a lot of races. Rosario was able to get him going, and he did get up to win, but there's always that lingering thought that he could do it again and consequently cost himself the race. Now he's got a freshening, and I think he's been in good form. I think he'll run a good race. The track is favoring early speed a little bit, so it's going to be kind of tough to come from behind and close this one out. He's certainly capable of it, but I think more than likely he'd be under. And again, my personal thing, he's just a little hard to trust. Stiletto Boy I like in this spot, mainly because as we know, he's going to be up on the engine, up on the lead. And I think that's a really good place to be in this race. He's got an inside post. He should be able to get up to where he needs to without any problem. You got Kent DeSormo aboard, who's a great jockey. And you definitely, it's a big plus to have a jockey like him in a race like this, where it's so deep. This one's had a freshening since the Oaklawn Handicap, and you can see the form was dipping a little bit after that big win in the Big Cap. So I think the freshening is what the doctor ordered, and I think that everything lines up pretty well for Stiletto Boy in this case, and I think this is a definite win candidate. Speed Bias will be some competition for the lead for Stiletto Boy right next door. You do get Luis Saez aboard, and Ron Moquette is having a really nice meet. He's pretty hot right now, and he and Luis have been connected pretty well. So you got some good connections going into this. The Pimlico Special last time for Speed Bias was a pretty good race. Showed some more improvement, got a career high buyer, and just couldn't quite hold off Rattle and Roll, who's just been, has just been a model of consistency this year. This is a pretty good field. This is basically the best horses in the handicap division that Speed Bias is running against here, and I think certainly could factor in the race as a pace presence if Stiletto Boy decides to rate a little bit, but I can't see it in this race, particularly coming off a significantly higher buyer speed figure than previously run, and so I'm going to pass. Rattle and Roll, again, the model of consistency. Look at that, 4 straight 100 or better buyers. This one just runs his race every single time. You gotta love that. He's a good, solid, honest horse. Kenny McPeak's not having a good meet at Ellis. He's 0 for 10, so that's a little bit of a concern. I like this sort of good, solid horse. I'm just not sure this one can jack it up buyer-wise to get the top number that would win this race. That's really my only issue. I think Rattle and Roll is a horse you can definitely use underneath, and if you want to try to get a win out of this one at 4-1, that's fairly square price. But it's I'm just not ready to put this one on top just yet. Got to prove it to me with one more. Smile Happy is definitely capable of winning this race. The Alashiba was an outstanding effort, and it culminated with a career high buyer, and it's significantly higher than anything he had run before. And that's kind of the thing that bothers me a little bit. If you look at this year, the 3 races that Smile Happy has run, debuted with an option 50 and ran a really nice race, got us all excited. Hey, Smile Happy's finally got it all together. And then the Oaklawn Mile probably was a little short for him, but he regressed a bit. And then ran a huge Alashiba at a distance that's probably more suited to him. He's developing a little bit of a Z pattern, and that would mean that more than likely in this race he's going to regress. And that's really my issue with Smile Happy. I like this horse. I think he's more than capable of winning when he's at his best, and I just don't think he's going to be today, so I'm going to try to beat him. And I think in this race, being such a deep field, really hard to take any horse at too short a price, and I think he's a little short for this one. West Willpower, conversely, I think you're getting great value at 7-2. What's not to like about this horse is another consistent one, fires every single time, is always in the money, and has had a little bit of a freshening since the Alashiba, where he came up a little short against Smile Happy and Art Collector, but I think you have to consider this one a bona fide win candidate. If he doesn't go get the lead, he could draft off of Stiletto Boy or Speed Bias just off their throat latch and wait till the time is right. He's more than capable of doing that. You get Brad Cox, you get Flavian Pratt, no reason not to use, and the track's favoring speed, that's perfect for him, so I think he's a logical win candidate. Last Samurai got the break that he needed. He's had a little bit of a freshening since the Alashiba, and as you can see, his last 3 starts from the Essex on, it looked like his form was starting to dry up a little bit. Got a kind of an uneventful fourth in the Ali Sheba. So Wayne Lucas gave him some time off. I think that's what the doctor ordered for this one. He's more than capable on his best day of putting a winning effort together. I am a little concerned that he's not at Oaklawn Park. I'll be honest. I think that's where he does his best running. I think he's more likely a candidate for underneath. But at 6-1, I could definitely see using this one as a win candidate. It's certainly possible under the right circumstances. Happy American is ever since was really good at fairgrounds early in the meet, and then it's just been form has been dissolving ever since. The Blaine last time, he got a third, but the track doesn't set up well for deep closers, and that's what he is. And if you're going to look for a closer here, certainly Proxy would be a better candidate. So I don't think things set up very well for him for this race, so I'm going to pass. The last leg of the All Stakes Pick 4 is the 11th race, and it's the Tepid Stakes. It's for 3-year-old fillies, and it's run on the turf at a mile. Number 1 is Sandra D, and if you look here, you can see that she's been making some pretty steady improvement. Last time they wanted to get her on a route for turf, but it came off of it. Still got the win, wire to wire. And the dam is 33% with turf routes. So there's and More Spirit's a pretty good turf sire. So there's some hope here for sure. I think the routes will probably meet pretty well with her, but I'm not sure she's going to be able to move forward enough, being first time against winners in a graded stakes, or in stakes company rather. So the Steve Margolis is 19% with turf to dirt, and has had some traffic. This one's had some traffic issues in the last couple, so maybe it's a little better than advertised, but I'm not sure it's enough. And first time against winners, I'm going to wait one. Safine won an ungraded stakes last time at the Horseshoe, and you do get third off the layoff. Eddie Keneally's a little cold at this meet, but he has been very well with Luis Saez when they have paired up. The last race, this one swung out pretty professionally 3 wide and drove off to get the win. And you do note that Mohawk Trail came back to win her next start. So it turned out to be a useful and productive race. And you do see steady improvement on the turf with all her starts. So she is getting better and moving in the right direction. I'm not sure she's quite good enough to beat these, but I think underneath you could probably use. I think she would probably be up near the pace. I don't know that she'll try to get it herself. Probably going to be hard to get from Heavenly Sunday, but this is one that's useful, and I think maybe you can find a place underneath on your tickets. Heavenly Sunday is another one that's made steady, progressive improvement. In particular, the Edgewood last time was a really nice gate-to-wire finish, and that was a pretty good field. You had Mission of Joy, who won next out in the Regret, I believe, and Revelina's a nice horse as well. And you see Gamely led throughout, so this one was full of run, and now you're going into your third off the layoff, and I just see no reason why this one won't take another step forward. Should have the lead. Going to get a little bit of competition from the next door neighbor, but I think this one will likely get the lead, and then it'll just be a question of if she's good enough, and I think she is. It's a logical win candidate. Wonderful Lady is trained by Brendan Walsh. He's pretty hot right now, and he and Tyler Gaffalione have been awesome together this year. This one's coming in third off the layup. The last race was an optional claimer for 100, and had a little bit of traffic issues in the stretch, but once she got free, she drew right off and won pretty impressively. So I think this one's got some talent. You definitely see has been progressing in now on to the third start, where another move forward is highly likely. I do wonder if this one is quite fast enough to deal with Heavenly Sunday, but I think at 8-1 you got a pretty square price, and certainly I think under the right circumstances could win this, so I think this one's worthy of using. Jagera is, I love this horse going to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf last year, and it just didn't happen, but if you draw a line through that race, you see this horse is getting better progressively. They even put this horse in the Alcibiades and got a fourth, and dirt's obviously not her preferred surface. Debuted this year at an N1X allowance and won extremely impressively. Was geared down in the stretch. Would probably have run maybe 4 or 5 buyer points higher if she had been all out, but didn't need to be. Rigby Racing's an awesome Kentucky outfit, and you get Phil Bauer, a really good Kentucky trainer. So I think this one is a logical win candidate. And Heavenly Sunday might have the tactical edge a little bit, but I think this one can definitely win this race and is an obvious use. Metaphysical, on the other hand, is just one that seems to have plateaued and always seems to be the bridesmaid. You see a lot of seconds. Never seems to be quite good enough. I remember the last race I had her in. I really liked her, and she in the Cinnabon Island, I believe it was, and what happened? She ran a really nice race, and she got a second, and that's she just is just a cut below. She's a good horse. I think will probably be better suited for the ungraded stakes when the fields aren't quite as deep. But I don't like her here. I just don't think she's good enough. Girl Named Charlie is pretty much the same thing, maybe a little bit better. You see, ran in the Regret last time, and we're stayed up near the leaders the most of the way, and then just wilted in the stretch when the class of the race came forward. Mission of Joy and Papilio in particular, they just inhaled the field, and it was those two and those two only. So I don't think this one's a bad horse. I just don't think she's quite at the level of the best in the turf division, and I think rating off the pace a little bit. If it only becomes completely dominated by early pace setters, maybe you get this one in the money. But I have a feeling this one will be backing up in the stretch, so I'm looking elsewhere. Santa Fe Gold will likely be a pace presence as well. I don't think she's going to get it from Heavenly Sunday, but you never know. This one's just another one. It's a cut below. Seems to have plateaued ability-wise. They moved her to turf last time, and it was pretty good on the front engine all the way around the track until Wonderful Lady got free and Moshiro, and they just blew right by her. So at 69 buyer, I don't think can win this race, and I don't see the progression here, so I'll pass. Classy Bridget has been a really useful filly. She's at the sprints in particular, she's done very well, and you see she was getting progressively better with every start up until the Purple Martin, and she got a kind of a weak third, but Key of Life is there's no sin losing to her. She's pretty special. So now they moved her out to a route at a mile, and obviously it wasn't bad. She got a fourth, but it's probably may not necessarily be that she wants more ground. I think they just wanted to try her out. But anyway, they've given her some time off, and now they're going to move her to turf. And the damn Classy Catlin is 0 for 22 on turf routes. And the trainer, Chris Hartman, is 0 for 4 in 3-year-olds moving from dirt to turf in routes. So it's not necessarily a great scenario. Is it possible that Classy Bridget could factor in this race? She certainly has some talent and has some class. But I don't know. I think that last indicator, the last race at Oakland, the Valley of Vapors, when she lost to Merlazza, maybe says that she's, maybe one turn is more to her liking. So I'd probably wait one, but you are getting 15 to 1 if you want to roll the dice, but I'm not. I'm going to pass, and I think there are others more suited to win this race. So here's what our ticket looks like for the All-Stakes Big Four. In the 8th race, we're going to use 1, 2, and 6. In the 9th, we're going to try to get a little value in there for the possible long shot with Tut's Revenge. So we're going to use the 2, 4, 5, and 8. In the 10th, we're going to use 2 and 6. It's West Willpower, a Stiletto Boy for me. And then the 11th, we're going to use the 3 and the 5. So 3 times 4 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 2 is 48. It's a $24 ticket on a 50-cent base. And I might recommend, I'll probably do some singling with some of the more obvious chalk and press it up a little bit on some tickets because I think this has the potential to be a little chalky. Certainly a lot of ways to go in the Stephen Foster. That's a very deep stakes race, and should be an exciting one. Hope you're looking forward to it. And I hope our analysis helps you with your own wager formulation. and I wish you the best of luck this Saturday. We are going to continue with our thoroughbred coverage throughout the racing season as the summer goes along. In particular, we will have extensive coverage from Saratoga, and I hope you're looking forward to that as much as I am. I always love going up to the spa, do it every year, and it's my favorite place in the world. So look forward to giving you a lot of content from there. And of course, if you do like what you see here, please like and subscribe. And thanks so much for coming by. We really do appreciate it. And keep those comments coming. Love for hearing from you guys. And I'll be talking to you in the very near future. So until then, be well.